Cruelty Squad is a first-person shooter released in 2021 during June on Steam after being in early access since January 4th of that same year. I've played more than my fair share of strange indie games by now, but this one is pretty odd. Just from the store page alone, you might find yourself bewildered and intrigued. I initially played the game back in 2021. Of course, when I say I played it, I mean I didn't even finish the first level before bailing and refunding it. If I'm totally honest, I'm a bit embarrassed with just how impatient I was back then. This time, however, I played the game proper and I can finally give my full thoughts. You play as just some guy, down on his luck and living in a bare-bones apartment. Very quickly you receive a call. Initially you just get bullied, but very quickly you're offered a job with the Cruelty Squad. After your call is concluded, you stare into the static of your TV, and the game kicks your ass to the main menu. We should probably talk about these visuals, huh? Cruelty Squad is a hideous looking game. Well, kinda. In truth, it's an incredibly stylized experience that looks like nothing else I've ever played. That being said, it's gonna be a rough adjustment for most people. Personally, I got used to it pretty quickly, but your mileage may vary. A common theme I've noticed in other reviews is an overfocus on the strangeness of this game's art direction. Granted, it is definitely different, but it's not as crazy as one might think. At the bare minimum, you can usually always tell what something is supposed to represent. Off the top of my head, there were only a few moments where I genuinely had no goddamn idea what I was looking at. On a technical level, it may seem subpar at first, but it really deserves more credit. This game somehow finds a sweet spot between bad visuals and style, and it's honestly kinda scary to me. I mean, sure, these look like people, but there's something slightly off about them. The main menu reminds me of that PlayStation 1 menu when you forget to put the disc in. Your corporate handler looks like this. Most things don't look totally insane, just a little off, although there are exceptions. The in-game HUD, for example, is genuinely disgusting. A fat border surrounds your entire screen with no purpose other than showing your difficulty. Your health is represented by a way too big blob in the corner of your screen, with your actual health just being a footnote at the bottom. The visuals are strange, but thankfully there does appear to be multiple motives behind it. The game is trying to make you uncomfortable on a surface level, but the visuals are also a representation of the world itself, which I'll dive into in spoilers. First though, we gotta talk about this sound design. As one would expect, the music and sound design is just as wild as the visuals, naturally. To discuss the music first, it definitely doesn't fit the bill for your usual indie game soundtrack. Now, I'll be honest, I know jack shit about music theory or any of that stuff, so this is purely a surface level assessment. The music here is a direct reflection of the cocktail of wacky shit you'll be seeing on screen. Some tracks are fairly mellow, some are even kinda catchy, and then someone decided to go full death grips and assault my ears. The sound design in particular fits nicely along with the visuals. It's just good enough to work, but strange enough to make your head spin. Gun sounds pitch shift down as your ammo count runs low, and the car engine is what I imagine a migraine would sound like. The sounds of the people themselves have a particularly strange quality. I think these sound like people, but I'm not honestly sure. For my own health, it's probably better if I don't question it. The sound works good. Alright, let's talk about the game part. Cruelty Squad advertises itself as a tactical first-person shooter. The store page also lists it as an immersive sim, which definitely makes me feel concerned. It's technically both of these things, but it dips its toes into a bunch of areas. This is a mission-based assassination game. There are 13 main missions total. There are 6 secret missions as well, but I personally didn't dig into those. Typically speaking, each mission will have you going to various locations, eliminating specific targets, and then getting cash money. This can include assassinating the governor at a mall, killing a bunch of rich guys on a cruise ship, and murdering the owner of a casino because your boss lost a vacation bonus gambling. Oh well, murder, 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 and more murder. Before beginning one of your missions, you have a few options for prep. You can carry up to 2 weapons at a time, and before each job you can pick which one you want to enter with. There are a ton of options here, with over a couple dozen weapons on offer. The only catch is that most of these have to be unlocked. This is done by finding them in the missions and then exiting with them. Some weapons are great, some are god awful, but at least your options are open. Luckily for you though, that's not all. The money you gain from your murder quests can be used for augments. I mean, could it be anything else? This is an immersive sim after all. This acts as your upgrade system. These offer you numerous benefits to help aid you in your journey. Even so, you'll probably immediately notice that these augments are a bit more cursed than what you might be used to. You'll be using your own intestine as a grappling hook, violently shitting out of your feet for a double jump, and hell, you can even install a gland that causes you to naturally regenerate ammunition. Some augments are definitely more helpful than others, but your options are open. The grappling hook in particular basically makes every mission 10 times better once you get it. Use of intestines aside, scaling some of these large environments is just much easier and much more fun with this thing equipped. Of course, if you want these upgrades, you gotta pay for them. The economy in this game is about what I would expect. Cash you earn from completing missions can be invested in the in-game stock market for long-term gain. Both in the menu and in-game, there is a stock market constantly changing. You can invest in regular stocks, body parts, and even fish. You could go down the regular boring route and invest with straight cash, or you could create the stock yourself. After killing someone, if you want to be a super degenerate, you can harvest their organs. I mean, they're not going to need them. Early in the game, you can find a fishing rod. By using this at random locations throughout the game, you can catch fish, which then becomes stock, which you can then hold onto or sell as you please. It honestly might seem really dumb at first, but this money-making mechanic genuinely captivated me, and I don't know why. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. We need to talk about the real shit, the missions themselves. This is where the tactical FPS and immersive sim shit comes into play. Most of the levels consist of these massive explorable areas with NPCs out and about. Some of these NPCs are just plain old civvies minding their own business. Some of them are anti-murder security though, and will guaranteed shoot you on sight. Keep in mind, civvies and enemies look insanely similar, so shooting civvies accidentally will probably be a regular occurrence for you, as well as deliberate civilian murder. But some missions only give you one target, some give you a bunch. The game never likes to hold your hand. It'll tell you what to do, but not how to do it. In a way, these levels have a puzzle-like quality to them as you explore and try to figure out how to achieve your goals. It's not insanely difficult or anything, but you do need to actually use your brain a bit, which I appreciate. That being said, this is still a shooting game. The shooting is serviceable for the most part. Guns feel pretty good to use and are mostly effective. Headshots in particular will save you a lot of hassle. Despite this though, the reload mechanic is very strange. Instead of just reloading with a button, you press and hold the right mouse button and drag the gun down and back up. I guess it's unique and it works fine, but even so, it is kinda clunky and did get me killed a couple times. To discuss the enemies in this game, your enemies aren't that smart, but they typically outnumber you by quite a stretch. You also die incredibly fast. Enemies will melt your health incredibly quickly. On top of this, fall damage is fucking insane. Falling from any kind of semi-large height will send your health bar packing. There are ways to mitigate this, but none are overly practical in all honesty. On top of all this, even the toilets can kill you. The enemies you fight are nothing special, but at bare minimum there is more than one enemy type. Typically you'll be fighting these normal guys with guns. Sometimes their guns are different. Sprinkled throughout the game, however, there are other weird-ass enemies. There are a couple zombie-type enemies. One is barely a threat, but a bit tanky. And the other one is faster, but leaves a toxic cloud when it dies, destroying the shit out of your health. There are special enemy types sprinkled throughout, but these guys honestly haunt my dreams more than anything. There's the dual-wielding skull guard. There's also this stone thing made out of balls that dies as slow as Ubisoft is currently. However, unlike Ubisoft, this enemy isn't boring or pissing on Tom Clancy's grave. This isn't a Doom game where you can just run around guns blazing without issue. You need to be smart and take your time. There's also no mid-mission checkpoints, so if you get greedy and make a bad choice, you'll feel it. There is a difficulty system here, but I have to be honest here when I say I truly have no idea what the rules are for it. Basically, you begin with your Divine Light on, what I guess is the standard difficulty, die too many times and you lose it. This changes the look of your screen border and also changes a few other things. Enemies seem to do less damage, you're no longer charged cash for death, and you can eat corpses to regain health. Sweet. You can regain your Divine Light by interacting with these floating spheres at a couple specific points in the game. As to if there is anything else to this, I have no goddamn idea. Only other thing I can note is that playing the game on the lowest possible resolution for some reason reveals secrets, because of course it does. It's a solid gameplay loop. You complete missions, earn money, invest money to make more money, explore levels to find more options and weapons, spend your riches on more wacky augments to create more avenues for insane experiments. It's a satisfying system and feels really rewarding. Do be warned though, this game doesn't hold your hand. Don't expect to get much help for anything. Right, I'm gonna talk about spoilers now, so if you don't want to hear those, skip to this. Okay, we all good? Alright, sweet. Before I dig into spoilers, I will say this is mostly my interpretation of the game's plot and themes. If you have totally different thoughts on it, that's completely okay. Personally, I'd like to see more people discussing this game's plot and themes. Across your various missions, you kill a lot of people. No matter how atrocious your crimes may seem though, you never question them. It's not outright said, but the game hints a lot that you live in a corporate future, a world where the needs of those at the top overshadow the needs of those at the bottom. You are an assassin, someone at the bottom exerting the will of those at the top. If you interact with some of the NPCs in the game, they'll say all kinds of strange things. Often they'll talk about current trends, random things they like, and very rarely you'll hear someone discuss their actual feelings. These random conversations help paint the world of Cruelty Squad. This is a world of surface-level corporations and consumerism, where reality is buried under an endless void of short-term pleasure, ignorant of just how bad things really are. This made me think about my character a lot more. Perhaps these harsh visuals are another indicator of this dying world. When you hear the NPCs talking about interior design and beauty, you have to wonder how beauty can exist in this world. In truth, it probably doesn't. Your character is shown to live in an almost completely empty apartment. He's noted as a depressed individual, and his entire job is to kill without thought. Perhaps he's one of the few individuals not caught in the cycle of consumerism. He hasn't fallen into the same trap as the general populace, and in turn, he sees the world for what it really is, and he hates it. This could even provide credibility as to why he takes up his line of work in the first place. Perhaps he's become so frustrated with this horrific world no one else sees, but one at which he cannot unsee, that he has chosen to disassociate himself from it. He fills his time with mindless murder, dying and being reconstructed over and over again, and replacing every part of himself with augments as his humanity slowly decays. The peak of this entire journey of mindless murder and misery comes in the form of the final mission, Archon Grid. Almost immediately you are thrown for a loop. Where before your mission briefing will be long, your handler can only muster a couple sentences for you. Unlike your previous missions, your goal is unclear. The location doesn't take on the noticeable appearance of any grounded location you recognize. Strange objects float in the sky and move erratically. Your enemies barely look like people anymore, and the way forward seems unclear. Even the design here feels different. Instead of an open area with a focus on exploration and finding your own way to success, the way forward seems set in stone. You follow through these cramped puzzle rooms, dying over and over but getting a bit further each time until you reach the last room. A strange, massive figure stands ahead. It looks like nothing you have encountered up to this point. Its large head signify this is a clear sign of a boss fight. You fire your weapons like mad, dodging its projectiles and fighting the onslaught of enemies. It's not the hardest boss you fought, but it's no cakewalk either. After a reasonable length battle, you reign victorious and the enemy is defeated. An exit is clear ahead of you. Like all the other exits, you move towards it. A massive plain is open to you. There are a few people here too, but they're few and far between. A giant pillar tower hovers over you. Your character walks towards it. It only seems to get farther away the further you go. You emerge from a long and weary sleep. The world appears as a large flat plain of opportunity. The sky is boundless and blue. You are among friends. The air is fresh with the scent of the ocean. You have learned acceptance and forgiveness, but you lack knowledge and understanding. You will be trapped forever. The past is ever present. The sun smiles at you with eternal malice. Personally, I don't think there is any one way of interpreting the ending of Cruelty Squad. I imagine you could spend hours and hours discussing the subject. Regardless, here are my thoughts. The ending text here could be describing the wishes of our main character based on the points that I made earlier. Perhaps this is our character's fantasy of what the regular people of the world live like. In their minds, the world is vast, beautiful. They are surrounded by people who care. They believe themselves to be good people, but they're completely ignorant to the true state of things and are thus stuck in a cycle of ignorance forever. Maybe it signifies a change in our character's perspective. Perhaps this text represents not a new world in the literal sense, but rather a new state of mind. Perhaps he has learnt to see things in a better way and is trying to be a more positive individual, but the true state of the world is preventing him from fully embracing a more positive quality of life. The sun smiles at him with malice because it knows his trial is fruitless. The final idea I had is that the ending may represent death. You die plenty of times throughout the game, but you are reconstructed and revived over and over again for the sake of accomplishing your goals, or rather the goals of the corporation. Perhaps the ending represents the moment you finally die for real, and what you see when you cross to the other side for the first and last time. The text taunts you that this may be the heaven you wanted, but you can never run away from your past. By living eternal in the afterlife, you are punished to live with your mistakes and misfortunes for all eternity. Of course, these are just some of my interpretations of the ending. As I've said, there is probably no definitive way to read this conclusion. Anyways, on to final thoughts. Cruelty Squad is an incredibly unique and well thought out indie experience. It might look like a shitpost game on the surface, but it is genuinely much more than that. The game gives you the freedom to play how you want in one of the most insane game worlds I've experienced in a long time. Beating the game took me around 7 hours, so it's not a long game, but the length feels just right. You can pick it up for like 29 EMU dollars most of the time. It goes on sale every once in a while, but it's not a big discount title. Regardless, I think it's well worth the money and deserves a lot more attention, not just like in the indie gamer space, but in general, I just think it's an experience that a lot more people should try out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't know if I'll make more videos in the future, but if people like this one, I'll consider it. Until next time.